What's up, cyberspace cadets? That's right. It's Sunday. That means it's time for ice cream. And the concept behind ice cream is simple. Everybody considers ice cream to be a treat, something special that we give ourselves, and something we savor and enjoy. And to me, talking to people that I find interesting or people that I want to know more about, that's a treat for me. And so I like to have my ice cream every Sunday at this time. And tonight's guest is a person that I've hung out with a couple of times, doing Jack Gunsky's embarrassing ass game thing. Everybody, this is Jen T Maxi. Say hi, girl.
Hi, guys.
All right, yay! I think the music might be a little too loud. I know you can't hear it.
I can't do my full-on roar. Alex was making fun of me. He's like, "You got a smoker's throat, Jen. You want to talk about smokers?" and I said, "That's not the problem. The problem is like Canada legalized pot, and there's a pot store like 3 blocks away from me, and I'm just like trying so hard the last like 6 months to pretend it's not a pot. It's like having candy when you haven't been allowed to have candy your whole life. It's not." I'm giving myself until the end of the month. I have one more joint left, and then that's it for me for at least until my birthday. Because it's okay to have a treat. It's not okay to go to a candy shop when you're inclined to be obese. So.
And that's why I prefer to call these things, instead of calling them interviews, I like to call them enhanced discussions. Because they're enhanced.
Confessions by Jen. Confessions by Jen. Well, it's just you talk about pot with people, even though it's legal in Canada, it's legal in certain states. Well, not really. I know that's kind of ishy-washy with that. But it's not like talking about beer yet. It's not like
Right.
I'm just discussing that I like to have an occasional beer. You're still talking about something that a lot of people are like, oh my God, don't talk about pot. But I like to let you know that I have had a little bit of pot while the 5 minutes of music were playing.
Well, I would never admit to a felony live, but
Is that a felony?
we may
Is that
be
illegal?
saying, but it's not. It's a misdemeanor now. That's right. It's where I'm at. Technically, it is. Anyway,
It's one of those things where like it might cause me problems crossing the border, but I do admit that would be a problem, but I'm sure that we can work things out with the U.S. as long as I'm not stoned or like planning to be stoned at any point crossing the border, which I
Yeah.
wouldn't do.
right. I think they would probably look for more for like transportation.
Yeah.
Bootlegging, as they say.
Yeah, I mean, if that was the worry, I would understand it entirely. Like I would never do that anyway.
Oh wow, we got a good crowd already popping in, man. The early birds are catching the worm, and those of you who got there very first and heard the Cult's Fire Woman off of the Sonic Temple album, which is a fucking excellent album. Everybody should own it, to be honest. It's Mutt Lange produced it anyway. So it got off on a slight tangent there, but we'll say hey to everybody. Memes, what's up, dude? Cynical Lindsay, of course. I always want to say Critical Lindsay for some shit. I don't know why. Ismail Ali, man, always on Sundays. I love having you here. Really, any other time I'm jamming. Come on by and hang out. Michael Hatfield, greetings, sir. The Uzi Q says hello, I'm sure. Boom, boom. Let's see. Is that everybody I got so far? Straight Sith Mail. That's right. Functional. All right. That's right. Functional was here like earlier, way earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he must have caught wind that I was here, which is nice because he's my co-host, and I appreciate having other Canadians on my show because honestly, it's been about 20 years since I was in high school, and going back to Canada and the politics and like why my life is where it is, and there was a point where I didn't vote, not because I couldn't, but because I decided at the time that I didn't know enough about how things were run, and I trusted my parents,
Right.
So it was like my one vote, yeah, it does count, but over the overall scheme of things, if you don't know what you're voting for, you should maybe not do it. And that was the first probably two times I could have voted that I didn't, and I don't disagree with that thinking. You know,
Okay.
as an adult now, looking back, I actually appreciate that I did that, and I had faith in my parents' decisions and, because they had the best thinking in terms of like overall, like they're thinking about their family, they're thinking about themselves, they're thinking about, you know, a lot of people I think don't vote with that in mind.
Right.
And it doesn't matter what spectrum you are on, because like there are some things that I don't agree with the conservatives on, and there's some things I absolutely 100% don't agree with with the liberals. So I'm probably closer to center right than I am anything.
Uh,
But I could go a little left for some things,
right.
I understand why some people have a difference of opinion when it comes to the marriage thing with the gays, and I was just like, I honestly didn't care. If they wanted to go through the grind of divorce like the rest of us, my mentality was like, you're kind of stupid, but okay.
Well, and well, the whole basic, if we want to grind it down,
Yeah,
the whole
yeah,
basic libertarian philosophy is you do you,
yeah.
right,
Basically,
stay out of my shit.
that's basically it.
You know.
Uh, and that was always that frame of mind there. It was just like,
Hmm.
as long as what you're doing isn't interfering with everything else, then I don't really care. It's just later down the road, so like there's little things in my life that I use as landmarks. So the biggest one in my city is the Peace Bridge because it looks like a giant joint,
Okay.
and we paid $9 million for it, and
Nice.
it looks like a giant joint, and it's called the Peace Bridge, and at least they decorate it for Christmas, so it's a festive joint.
That's crazy.
But honest, you look at it from a far view, from like, from the angle of the helicopters when they're doing their scopes of the city, and you're just like, yep, there it is. I would love to see someone just light a little flame at the end of one of the tips, uh,
Nice.
but this was one of those things where it was like, okay, Jen, this is why you pay attention to politicians, because if I had known that these people were going to put this in, I wouldn't have voted for those politicians.
So,
I,
I was going to say, so all right, how long have you been on YouTube now?
Okay, so I've followed YouTube like the rest of pretty much. I'd say since the beginning of YouTube, I've followed people. Like I've always followed Repstein since the beginning. I've been just the person watching everybody else. Up until about 2 years ago, I started doing the odd gaming stream, and then ever since October, I just put my foot down and said, you know what? I don't think I'd say the majority of the world knows maybe 90% about how Canada runs. Like you get
Right.
the odd person who does work here and understands, or the odd Brit who understands that our system's a little bit closer in alignment to theirs, because
Hmm.
it is. You get the fellow colonies, because we are technically a colony. I mean, we're not, but it's still there, and I think Canadians were okay with it because nothing bad to us really happened. It was just it was expensive living here. It's hard to live in a cold region of the world
Right.
because you have to deal with the seasons, and those can destroy cities. They can leave you without power. Like it's one of those things when you really think about it. Like my ancestors came out to sod huts, right? Your
Hmm.
ancestors, I don't know how long your ancestors have been in North America for, but we were living in sod huts. So when you look at the cities that we live in now, um, you know, in the history and all that stuff, like it wasn't easy living out here. And we did it, and we survived with just our neighbors, and regardless of who they were, like these are the people I consider like my fellow Canadians at the heart of it. I don't mind people moving here or becoming Canadian, but I don't think people understand that when they move here, that the big cities that you're living in is the heart and grind of people moving here. Yes, absolutely. But, we started off with nothing, you know.
Right.
So sorry to get all deep on you there. Like
No, it's cool. No, I like these. I like that's kind of the reason I like to do this is because you just never know where this place is. Where you're going to go with people, right? In conversation, and that's what I love about it. So what
Yeah, that's
was
just
what?
where my brain went to. It's just the last couple of weeks, like I lost a neighbor, and my family is kind of struggling a little bit for my dad's side, and it was just stuff that he would bring up because my family's been in Canada for so long. Like we've been here probably since around the 1700s. You know,
Right.
um, it's just when you look back on it, like there's only so many records you can find of like how we got to like this province and what we came to, and like there was nothing here, and then we voted in Trudeau, and I feel like everything that my ancestors have built is just being shoved up our ass.
Yeah. I know,
So
man.
that's why
I know that feeling of like fucking feeling like you just like lost like 25 years, and you went back in time, but
yeah,
you're
I
old.
mean I think that's why I really wanted to start these streams, because like I said, I don't have a problem with people moving here because that does build our country. Like we don't have a lot of infrastructure. We're not built out like you guys are.
Right.
There's certain parts where like it's not that we couldn't build up. It's just it would be expensive to do because it's more cold. You're dealing with more elements. You're dealing with more things that can happen where you're not as close to the border. And the reality is that we lean on you guys a lot more than people think up here. Like, I mean, we're independent, we take care of our own, but like in case of like a natural disaster, who comes to help us out?
Right.
It's
Right.
you guys. So like it makes absolute sense that we're closer on the border to where the rest of the world is, because everyone else is either across the seas or across the seas.
We're continent cousins.
We are. So
I like that.
a lot of people moving here, like I think they think that we're spread out the way that you guys are, because they think big country, small population. It's like, not really. No. Everyone moves to the cities. The cities aren't big enough.
Right.
We need more cities, and that takes time and infrastructure, and we're under a guy who doesn't understand how money works, or how borrowing money and investing money and having to pay that money back. And
But he's so
we can't even
handsome.
he's so handsome though, in those socks, those beloved socks that he likes to hike up. And it
Mm.
makes me wonder what he used to do in college.
Mm.
I want to bet he just really has a sock fetish. He faps to blackface in his socks, man.
Holy shit. That's funny. I had a throat full of stuff. I was trying to
Sorry.
swallow. That's fine, man. I like it when this shit happens. So all right. So you're coming to YouTube. All right. So how are you presenting yourself? Are you a character? How much of what we're seeing on YouTube is really the real you?
So when I do the political talk, I try to stay more as myself. You know, regardless, I'm actually just being myself. But when I'm doing my gaming streams, you're more likely to get like the odd personality or the odd like character voice, because I like doing those. Like I like singing a little bit. I like having fun when I'm just doing a game. When I'm doing the politics, I try to keep it more sincere, just because I am trying to offer real information for people, but at the same time, I will poke fun at politicians. If I know that there's a joke that's made that I can make to make it a funner topic, I will do it. It's just really how you go about it. Like at this point, I don't do Trump jokes, not because there's not funny Trump jokes. It's just there's so many Trump jokes, and some of them are so bad that like it's the worst dead meme ever.
I may concur with that completely. Just saying.
It's just and the word it really killed it, because he would have been a great politician to really make fun of from the conservative point of view.
Mm.
But like he's under attack so much that you're just like, you know what? It's just I can't find it in me to laugh at it right now.
Right. Well, yeah, man. It's farcical. I think it's. I just think it's indicative of what the United States has, just an entrenched, a whole generation of fucking
Yeah,
government workers that are just, they're not going anywhere, right?
they're not.
And they're just wagging their dicks in our face, saying, look at me, and there's nothing you can do. You can't vote them out. They're fucking working for the FBI and the CIA and shit.
Well, there's that, and there's no one coming up that's better. Like I feel actually
Senators.
some sympathy for them because like I do believe in a two-party system. Like I do believe that there should be balance in the politics, but with the Democrats, they've completely lost it. I feel bad for people
Mm,
who are Democrat who genuinely do believe that some of what they're doing is the right way of going about it. But you've got leaders like that, and they're just so crazy.
mm,
And you can't even speak out about it because the minute you do, well, then you're conservative then, aren't you? You can still be a Democrat and disagree, but the minute you do, well, you're just far right. And I actually feel sympathy for them because like I do believe in a balance. I don't think that one party should be in charge for longer than like say 10 years.
mm.
Um because both parties like the thing is I find that they do get into this mindset of like it's my party, it's my power, it's my my influence, and there's too much of that. Like that was always how I viewed the US, was like having that other opposition voice to just like, okay, we can't do too much of this, let's balance it over here a little bit. um and it's up here too, like it absolutely is up here too. You don't want to turn into us because like some of the stuff that Trudeau's doing is like he's taking tips from China. And I'm like, fuck no, man.
Wow.
Like I'm like, hell no. That repels. I don't know where he thinks he's gonna get any Canadians or a lot of people coming to Canada who are gonna be okay with that.
How in the hell did we let an entire generation of people think that fucking socialism is okay?
It was, the thing is they portrayed it wrong. It's the odd socialist program. Like for us, okay, we'll go to like
Well,
healthcare or something.
yeah,
It works for us because we're small.
I'm
We
talking
we
about
have
more like the Stalin,
Oh yeah.
the Lenin, model, which it's like authoritarianism. It's
Hmm.
not just socialism. It's we you could argue that the U.S. is, has some socialist programs too, like Social
Hmm.
Security, things like that. I think that it's a hybrid type system. But to think that the old Soviet, where the state owns everything, nobody owns property, none of that shit. I just I don't know, man. It's just I don't know how we allowed an entire generation of kids to think that that's okay.
I think it's one of those things where how they've been raised is different. And I know that sounds picky when you're judging other people's parents, but my parents were never poor.
Mm,
I was never poor, but I was never given anything. Like, yes, Christmas or a birthday was an exception, um, back when Easter was still okay. I think Easter went until about like 11 before my parents were like, yeah, you're too old for that. Like, we know that the bunny doesn't exist. And maybe I'd get some chocolate as like as a treat. But
right.
anything else I had to work for. I had to do chores for. I had to, like, if I wanted to make a little extra money, I had to clean sidewalks, or mow lawns, or do lawn work, or do chores for neighbors or something. If I wanted extra money for a present for myself, if I wanted to purchase something, I had to earn it. I think a lot of these kids are like, because you look at socialist programs, well, you use other people's money to pay for that. Like, it's not just yours, it's
Mm-hmm.
everybody's money. So when they're thinking, oh, well, my block can afford it, well, yeah, their block probably could afford it, but the block next to theirs might not be able to, or so on and so forth. And I think they're so used to this idea that the money is just handed to you, that it's just so easy to take other people and not think anything of it, because it's like they say that, when you get older and you realize the value of where your dollars go to, you start questioning, you know what are you paying for with this program? Like, if it's something that's going to help everybody, I have no problems with it. Like, there's certain levels of healthcare where I agree with it. Like, if it's one of those things where, like, there's so many ways that you could go about it without having that mentality. um but these kids, like, pay for my school, and what are you going to take? If I'm paying for your school, you better be taking something that's going to get you a job,
Mm.
because you better be paying for the next kid who wants to go to school too. And I don't think they understand that's what they're asking for. you know um it doesn't work like that. And I do support kids going to higher college if they're going to get a good job for it. Like, if you're going to be an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer, something where you do need that extra level of education because it's a little bit more in depth. Yeah, you go to the higher colleges. But I really wish that they would bring a lot more of the fields back into the high schools. Like, it's like, I don't know, like, I hear different things from different Americans, but like the woodworking shops and like the home ec shops and
Yeah.
things like that, like, they've done away with those in high
Hmm.
school. And I think it's a great shame, because a lot of kids at that age are learning more hands-on than they are reading.
Right. Like how to budget, how to balance the checkbook without using a
Yeah, that stuff
calculator.
is,
Shit like
you know,
that.
you focus on all that stuff, and then you let kids learn with their hands as well. Because, like, um I don't know, like, at least my experience in high school, like, most kids I found, like, I always kind of wished I was just more homeschooled or just one-on-one for myself. But I just found most kids were just so distracted by everything else other than learning.
Yeah.
And I mean, you've got kids who are focused on learning, and I felt for them, because I was like, well, you're just distracted by everyone around you, aren't you?
Right.
um and that's class sizes. That's a problem with class sizes more than anything. That's like, once you go 30 plus, you're just like, good luck for you.
So like, is there a food from your childhood that you like hated, but now as an adult you actually like it?
Like, food or
Yeah.
beef.
Beef.
Hmm.
Nifty.
Um, and on my behalf, though, my mom and my dad used to cook with a lot of beef because it was cheaper.
Right.
It was the cheaper meat to buy. So my mom would make, like, a lot of spaghetti. She'd make shepherd's pie, then she'd make like a goulash, and then we'd have steak, and then the next night it would be a stew. So it was just too much of one thing.
Right.
And my mom would have me, like, counting bites, and I would be like, I'm more chewing this than I, like, it's making me gag because I'm so sick of it. Eh, and not being a big eater, like, there are those kids out there who just aren't big eaters, because they're more like, I it's one of those things growing up that I think people don't realize people eat differently. Some people eat in small patches,
Hmm.
and most parents grew up in the 3 meal system,
Right.
where you have your breakfast, your lunch, and your dinner. And my mom is set in stone for those. And I was probably more that kid who was probably fine eating one big meal, and maybe like the odd snack, and then that would have been fine. But no government system, doctor system, health system tells you to do that with kids. So
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Let's see. Oh. So, all right. Looking at you being a kid and everything, who would you say is the most influential person of your childhood?
in my childhood, um I would probably go back to my early childhood, and I'd have to say my Uncle Wes.
Okay.
And it's a little bit fuzzy because, like, he's technically my godfather. Uh and he was my first neighbor across the street. And for whatever reason, my parents just adored that family. And when I was a little girl, I would just follow this guy around, and he was a giant bear of a man, but he was just super super nice all the time. um Whenever I think of him, he's just like he's that uncle that lives in the U.S. now.
Right.
he was he was always American, but like they'd moved up here for a job and then moved back down, and but yeah, he taught me to not be so afraid of people. Because when I was a little girl, I didn't talk to anyone other than my parents and my brother. Like, it wasn't selective mutism. I just, I didn't trust anybody.
Right. Well, man,
How about
there
you?
was that stranger danger thing going on back then too. You know.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
mean it was heavy, and I was a daycare kid too. So
Mm.
like even at the daycare they start teaching you what to look out for. Even at the daycare they're like, don't go with this person, don't go with that person, and um yeah, you daycares are good and they're bad. Like I don't begrudge my mom going back to work, but she always regretted that they brought her back in so soon. You know, because I was an early daycare kid. Like within the first year I was in daycare. And I don't think that's good for children at all. Um I realized that in the system that we have that like it's really hard to put somebody back to work after a year or two of not being at work.
Right.
Um Even if it's just to be at a lower level just working back up to where you were.
Hmm.
But it would be better for like one parent, regardless of which person decides to do it, to stay home for at least both parents should have a year, in all honesty, because it's better for the kid. uh I know that's like asking for a lot given that like that's expensive to do, but I think it's better for the kid. Because every kid that I've seen mentally who's had that presence just at least for the 2-year period, because your brain is developing after the womb.
Mm.
It's developing for at least a good 6 months after you've been born.
Actually,
That's
it
why,
doesn't stop growing until you're 25. The nervous
right?
system. Yeah.
So like that immediate interaction with your parents is really important, especially if you want them to learn how to read faces and read emotions with
Hmm.
people.
Yeah. And then print.
Uh,
Yeah.
because every kid that I know that was a daycare kid, like we're good kids, they're still good kids, but like there's that little bit of like I don't really understand what you're getting at.
Right.
That you would understand with emotions that quicker with facial recognition and little things like that they know now that they didn't know when we were kids, and they
Right.
certainly didn't know when our grandparents were kids. So,
Oh yeah. No shit.
um, and now we have parents who probably do know better, but they're going to convince their kids that they're the opposite gender. I am so glad I'm not a child in today's age. We should make that our new game. What would you be if you were a child in today's society, based off of what you used to pretend to be as a child?
That's a cool question.
Mm-hmm. It really is, because like I knew kids who were like into Transformers or like Thundercats, or like maybe they were into Merlin, maybe they were into like dinosaurs. You know, sometimes I didn't know many boys who played with girl toys, but every once in a while there was the boy who didn't have any guy friends around who would play with the girls. So I mean, if that was what they were playing with, that's what he would play with.
Hmm.
Um, but that doesn't mean that he thinks he's a girl. It just means that he's a good kid who's trying to get along with the other children.
Right. And it's like right, and it's nobody's job to tell that kid that just because he played with a doll doesn't mean that he has a desire to be a different gender or
It,
sexual express. Sexual whatever.
the
That
worst thing.
frustrates me. It's bigger than fun.
Well, it's such a flip, because growing up when I was a kid, the big rage was about letting little girls play with boy toys if they wanted to.
Hmm.
And yet again, I have no problems with that. If the little girl wants to play with the truck, then let her play with the truck. Who
Yeah.
gives a shit? Maybe she wants to move dirt and she realizes that a truck moves dirt. I'm sorry, both genders can figure that one out. That doesn't suddenly mean that she wants to be the soldier boy, and you know, she might want to be the soldier girl in X-Men, but she might not want to be the soldier boy in X-Men. Okay.
Right.
Um, that flip, you know, and even then, you don't really hear that side of it, do you? You don't really hear the girl's side. Oh well, she played with a boy toy. I mean, they probably are working up to it, but uh, they have to start with the little boys first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that actually offends the crap out of me. Like, if there was ever a little part of me that was a little bit feminist back in the day, it was that part that was like, yeah, let your kids play with whatever toy they want to play with, and who gives a shit what gender it was for. Uh, and now they're they're still directing it. They're still telling you what gender you should be to play with a toy.
Yeah. It's you know, and they're gonna run with shit. It's
They are.
you know, I mean, um, so do you have a like? All right, so you know, it's almost Christmas, man. It'll be Christmas on Wednesday. Is there like a Christmas special or a Christmas carol, something that you know always you kind of have to go to it, or you know just to acknowledge the
uh,
season?
let me look up the song. I've got it on my playlist. There's one song I like. It's not. It actually doesn't have words because quite often, like, the words are nice, but like the background music is really the Christmas stuff for me. Because most Christmas music is remakes.
Mm.
Let me just find it on my list if I can. Uh,
That's
Sorry, it's been a
really the
while.
kind of music I should be playing in the background, you know. I didn't even think of that.
There it is. Carol of the Bells. Carol of the
Bum ba
Bells.
da dum bum ba da dum. That one.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just got so much like beat to it, and it just kind of gives you that little rush of Christmas, and you know,
Yes.
the excitement, and it's really good for background music if you're building something.
Yeah. Well, and it's a very bright song, very up tempo, happy sound. You
Hmm.
know, and you know, it's like we need more of that shit, in my opinion.
Like, I found that was a lot of Christmas. It was all either depressing or like it's either depressing or I'm missing somebody for Christmas. And it was like that I get too, but at the same time, no.
Right.
It's just like you're either with your family or you're single. And I'm like, can we not focus on being single all the time? I can be married and single, thank you very much.
That's right. That's good. All right, so if you could go back in time and talk to yourself at the age of 8, what would you tell little Jen?
High expectations are fine, but don't hold out for them.
I don't know if I would even understand that at the age of 8, but you know that's me. Yeah, I was a weird kid. So all right, so what was elementary school, middle school like for you?
Uh, so I was kind of, if I look back and I'm honest, I was probably a little princess. And that sounds silly, but I was a cute little girl. I definitely had a lot of friends. I was in and out of daycare. The daycare was usually pretty nice to me. You know, the teachers were pretty nice to me. I always had like fairly good sized birthdays and stuff. So like I'd say that my elementary school was pretty good. My brother was just old enough to, you know, watch out for me when I was little. So, you know, I was never really worried about bullies.
Hmm?
Although I probably should have, because there were certainly some who wanted to take one out on me.
Do you have any other
um,
siblings?
I have a brother. Yeah, he's 3 years older than I am.
Okay.
Um, and he was kind of my only friend growing up for the longest time because my block didn't have a lot of kids my age that weren't boys.
Hmm.
So there was a little time period where like I could play with them and it was okay. And then I got to this point where it was just I was no longer okay with it because it was weird.
Yeah.
You know, it was just like they're wanting to play what they want to play, and I could get that. And you know, boys play different from girls. It was just sometimes they'd want to do stuff, and I was like, that sounds really violent. Or like you're really gonna hurt yourself, and I would lose interest in it really quickly because it's just the difference between boys and girls, I guess. It was just some boys are not afraid of hurting themselves, like they're not afraid of getting the skinned knee, like they're in pain and they're pissed off, but they're not afraid of it. Whereas as a little girl, you're just like, that sounds stupid.
What's the craziest thing you did as a kid?
um, what was it called? Not a toboggan, but like the summer version of it. Can't remember what they're called. Like they were little car things that you could ride down hills on.
Yeah, like a little go
Um,
kart thing, or
yeah. It was a go kart. Well, my dad bought one for my brother and I for Christmas, and then promptly broke it, like most adults like to do with their kids' toys. So he was like, "Well, I'm an engineer. I'm gonna build you the biggest thing ever." So he built this thing. It was like iron and wood, and it was a tank of a thing. And so I went down this hill, and I'm surprised we didn't break somebody's fence because the damn thing was heavy too. And this hill is no joke. Like, you know, you're gonna go straight down without proper brakes, and thank God they worked somewhat, so you could slow down enough to like level off at the bottom of, like, there's a part of the hill where you could kind of slide off and level out. But going down that thing and heading towards metal poles and sitting there like, no.
man.
I don't have a problem with roller coasters. You know why? Because roller coasters, well, I mean, as long as they don't have a poor reputation, they're designed with safety in mind, okay? Like, you're not supposed to fling off. I've heard of horror stories, but, like, that's a rare death, right?
Yeah,
But
there's a
when you're looking at,
lot of planning going into the building of them. You know, a lot.
like, there's a lot of engineering. Like, the good ones test it out. Like, they do little tests first, and then they do the math on what it's supposed to do. But when you're not in that situation and you're like, I have no idea where the math on this item's gonna go down this hill, and it's made of it's solid metal, and there's a fence or a metal post.
Right.
What do I aim for? What's gonna cost me less?
So, all right. How about all right? What about the first time you got fucked up?
uh, what do you mean, like sexed or like fucked up?
I mean,
As
well,
in,
down in the U.S. it means to get like wasted on some type of chemical. You know.
oh, okay.
More,
So I waited until, oof, depends on the level. If you're talking about a cigarette, I was probably 16 when I first stole one from my brother's pack. um, so I will count that one as a chemical because they are technically a chemical.
they're a
Smokes
gateway
are
drug.
you know,
They're a gateway
fairly,
drug. Yeah.
they very much are. I would say they're more so than pot. You know, I know more people who smoked pot and then didn't do anything else other than pot and maybe beer. But I know more people who did smokes and did other things.
Hmm.
But for me, smoking, I'd sat there and thought about it logically. I knew I was gonna smoke, even when I was a kid. I knew I was gonna pick it up. And it was just the smell of it. I liked it. I liked the idea of the holding something and the hand gesture to the mouth. Um, it just felt like I'd done it before. Like, it's one of those things where like you see something and you recognize it and you feel like you've done it before, and it's calming in that way.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it was something I saw in a movie when I was little. I don't blame it on that kind of influence, but I don't know, subconscious is weird.
It is. It is.
But I liked it. But I wouldn't say I didn't do anything really harder than that until I was 22. So Like the closest thing to booze that I ever had was a cooler that I drank half of and then puked like 30 minutes later, and I think it was just sugar overload. So I can't really claim that because it didn't stay in my system long enough to really do anything, and I honestly just chugged water afterwards because the mom who gave it to me, like she did it for her daughter. Like she had an older daughter and then a younger daughter, and she was like, well, if I'm giving it to the older daughter, I don't know where her math went, but we were in a safe situation, so I didn't see an issue with it even as
Yeah.
a 15-year-old or as an adult. In a controlled situation, I can see a parent doing that. But I puked it up. But the hardest thing at 22 was the pot. Yeah. At 22, I was just like, you know what? I realize now that I'm never going to drink booze because I just can't keep it in my system. Like, I think my system just sees it as poison
Right.
and reacts to it like it is. And I don't want to argue with that, um, because that's a natural body function. I think that if your body is seeing something as a toxin, then it probably is. Even if it's not, it just could be that, like, if I were to drink too much, maybe my alcohol tolerance is just that low. Um, so like not a big deal. And I was at 22. I was like, everyone else goes out and they get drunk and they have fun. I mean, yes, bad things can happen. Yes, you can make poor life decisions, but for the most part, if you're safe and you're not stupid, you can have fun. And somebody was like, well, try a bong. And I was like, you know what, let's try it. Worst case scenario, it makes me sick like the booze does, and I just have to live with being a librarian for the rest of my life.
Right.
um and I tried it, and you know what? It just mellowed me out. That stuff made me hungry because the strain was the type that made me hungry, and I just felt really relaxed and
Yeah.
calm and giggly, and it was fun. So I didn't see that as a big deal. Um, and so I probably had two more puffs, probably got a little bit more stoned than I should have for a first timer, and then just went home and fell asleep.
Yeah. Did you ever
It was a
get
good
like?
evening.
Did you ever get stoned like and get like one of those where you like thought you kind of like freaked out or anything?
So pot will make you paranoid. So I would say living on my own, there was one time where I was just paranoid as hell. And part of it was because I'd had someone break into that building. Like, it was an old 100-year-old building. This is not a good area of town. Like, it's not the worst, but not a good area. So I was worried about somebody breaking in. And here I am smoking a joint, and I was just like, okay, so I think my brain is clear enough that I could react, and I always had like something near my desk just in case, something like that were to happen.
Mm-hmm.
My cat used to sleep on my shoulder, so I was like, well, she's gonna freak out if somebody's like at the door, because she does. Like, if somebody is walking by the door, she goes and gets up and she goes to the door and checks it, But at the same time, I'm stoned, so that made me more paranoid than if I hadn't been stoned.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it does increase that. Like, I was genuinely scared. Like, I'd gone and grabbed I have this big flashlight. It's like the size of a club, and I had it by my desk. And on the other side of my desk, I had oven cleaner because I was like, you know what? If you break into my house, I'm gonna at least make you regret it with a few scars.
No shit.
And you're gonna have to find a sink to get that off if you can figure out what it is that I sprayed you with in that time. So, and afterwards I was fine. Like, the next time I hadn't smoked again for maybe 2 months afterwards,
Mm.
and I was fine. It's just you will have those little moments, but it depends on how often you smoke too. Like, I know guys who that's all they do.
Right.
um, and I mean, I'm surprised the guy didn't drive himself nuts. Like, because he was paranoid as it was. Like, he already had a paranoid personality, but like, he thought people were trying to sneak into his apartment, and he lived on like the 16th floor of this apartment building. I'm like, they're gonna have to get into the building first, find your apartment to get up there. You've got a good door, you've got a good lock, you've got a front door. It's got two front doors actually.
Right.
They're not just gonna break in and get in. Like, how are they gonna get to you? And what are they gonna like Spider-Man up there? They're gonna climb up because there are people who will do it. I'm like, dude, you wanna climb that high up to my apartment? Okay, you do that.
Good luck, man.
So yeah, it can do stuff like that. Most pot that you get from the government, though, you're not gonna get paranoid off it. Like, there's nothing that you can purchase from where our locations are that's nearly strong enough or has anything in there that's gonna do something like that. Like, I don't even have anything that I've bought that makes me hungry,
Mm.
let alone like that. I just mellow out. I might talk a little bit more, like I get a little bit more chatty. Um,
So, what kind of blend do you smoke, if you don't mind me asking?
uh, so what I bought today, so I went cheap today because I'm on a budget, but I got it's called the Batch, and it's a solo joint. So this is how they talk up here. They talk THC and CBD.
Okay.
What was this one? I think this one was like 20 THC, like 20%, and then I think it was like 1% CBD. It would have been better if it was a little bit higher CBD. Um, but I mean, it's enough to mellow out my body. Like, I'm, physically relaxed, and I'm mentally high. Um, it's just the CBD is what gives you more of that body high.
Yeah. Um. So, well, that's cool, man. What about all right? So, what was the first concert you ever went to?
uh, Oof. So I've never gone to a girl band concert. The only concerts I've ever really gone to were like with my mom because I'm nice. So what was the first one I saw with her? I'm not really sure. It could have been Rock Rosine or it could have been Celine Dion, but I went to one of them, and it was the first one I'd ever gone to. And they weren't bad. Like, she's not a bad performer in any sense. It's just I live in Canada. She's Canadian, so she's played everywhere.
I was going
My
to say
mom loves her.
Celine Dion, man. Yeah,
Celine Dion, man.
she's all share, you know.
Oh God.
Yeah.
She is our share, and you know what? I have a lot of sympathy for my dad, especially after I moved out, because like there were CD players that could give you like 3 to 8 like CDs at a time. Every single one of them would be Celine Dion or Barbara Streisand or something to that line, and then she'd play them over and over and over again. And my dad would be sitting there like, you know what? I'd like to listen to some Native American chants right now. Anything other than this?
Man. So, all right, what's your favorite band?
AC/DC.
Yeah, that was fast.
Yep, it was. My brother used to play them. He got me. He actually did get me a CD. I got my own CD. I never got any posters, anything like that, because it was one of those things I didn't want to horrify my parents by telling them that I liked rock.
Right.
But I had the internet at 15, and the radio, and CJ92 was ours. So they I would listen to CJ92. So there was a while not that long ago where I kind of revisited Heart, because as far as music bands go, I would have 100% gone for a Heart over majority of the ladies that are promoted nowadays.
Oh my God, it's fucking it's like night and day.
It 100% is. Like, every time I go back and I watch them, like I can't listen to them all the time, but I go back and I listen, and I'm just like, between the vocals, between actually having musical talent, like you can play multiple instruments, both of them can. They both do. The whole band is excellent. Like, the guys are good too. Barracuda is not my favorite song, but it's my favorite one to watch.
Mm.
Like that, I think I'm not sure if it's 1970s or 1980s, but where she's playing that guitar and her hand is just all over the place. I can just sit there and listen to that, mesmerized, watching her play. And then you look at like Miley Cyrus or who is it, Taylor Swift, or any of them, like Beyonce. I'm like, yeah, you've got you've got okay pipes, that's nice, but can you play a guitar?
Well, and think about it, auto tune, man. You know, I was like, what the fuck? It's cheating.
I
That's cheating, man.
it is cheating.
It's like you don't even need to have talent, people. You just if you're pretty enough, we'll put you in front of a microphone. Don't worry about singing in tune. Fuck that. We'll take care of that for you. You know that I don't understand the modern music. I do like poppy. Um, I don't. What do you have a guilty pleasure, music wise?
Uh Not really. I mean, I listen to some stuff that's a little bit different, like because I whenever I'm in thinking mode for like certain games, like if I'm building something, I like to listen to background music. So like sometimes it'll be music from movies or music from games or like certain animes, like the background stuff. So sometimes I'll listen to something like that that's really epic because it makes my brain think of a castle, and it just helps me organize my mind. But sometimes I'll listen to oh gosh, Audio Machine. I like Ivan Torrent. They're just like these guys do a lot of background epic music. So like if you listen to it, you feel like you're watching a Batman movie. I've heard it described. Um, so I mean, it sounds weird, but it's kind of I guess that would be my guilty pleasure, you know, because it inspires me a lot. Like I like music that inspires me. It's kind of why I liked a lot of the rough music in the rock in the day. Even the pop back in the day was better than what they have nowadays, and
Mm.
that stuff was cheap too. Um, but it just it doesn't really move me as much as it used to. Whereas theater music, or it's geared with that intentions, like they're playing it deliberately to invoke emotions. um that's how I see music anyway. I don't know about you.
It's good stuff. No, I find your answers are fascinating. You're very a very deep thinker about things, and I like that. I like that. Um, so, what was high school like?
uh so high school was a hit and a miss with me. So the thing you have to understand with high school is I'd missed half of my time in my junior high school private prior to high school, and that was more to do with issues growing up. So I was beyond the moody kid when I was a kid. By the age of 12 to 13, I'd gone really like down kind of a dark path.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was seriously suicidal. I wouldn't actually have gone out and killed myself because logically I was too much into thinking how hard is that to actually do, to just finalize turning off your brain. And at 13, like I didn't know how to deal with my emotions, and I didn't know how to deal with people around me. And by age 12, um I was already physically an adult, but I was 100% mentally not an adult. And when you're physically treated like when you're physically an adult and everyone's treating you like you're an adult but mentally you're not, and you're trying to tell people like, listen, like these are where I'm not, where you're going wrong with me, and they're not listening, you have a hard time dealing with that when you're a kid. Um, so going into high school, I'd missed the last 2 years of junior high because I was sent to a program that was smaller class. There were counselors that were supposed to teach us, and they weren't teachers. Like they taught us some things like fractions, or we were given a book hour, and I was like, you could give me a book hour for 8 hours, and I would be perfectly fine. But you're not really fixing my problems by doing that. You're actually making it worse because I'm still not learning how to interact from this book.
Right.
Um, and so by the time I'd gone to high school, I was in a different place going into high school because kids don't understand that kind of thing. Um, there's other kids in a similar boat, but we don't talk about it to that level when you're that young. You're talking about your emotions, you're talking about what upset you at the time, but you don't sit there and you don't think about what is it that's really causing you problems. Like your lack of ability to communicate is for me was what my problem was, and I find a lot of those kids have the same. It's not talking, it's the style of talking, what it is that they're talking about. Because if you're just talking about problems but you're not actually getting them to discuss how are you thinking about finding a solution for this problem, you go into high school, and so naturally I was picked on, even in junior high I was picked on. Like there was points where people wouldn't talk to me. I did have some friends that were good friends, but they weren't able to understand what I was actually going through, so they would say stuff sometimes like, they would make the odd joke about it, or and that would have been fine if they understood what they were talking about. um but it was underhanded back slaps. You don't want to give your friends that kind of ammo, even if they're good friends, because kids are mean.
I
And
agree.
teachers in big classes, like 36 students in a classroom, that teacher isn't prepared for kids like that. They don't know how to get that kid to interact with the rest of the class. They don't know how to um bring them out of that kind of mindset, and they don't even know when they are in that mindset, because your face doesn't change. Like I could still be smiling at you and you have no idea what I'm thinking about. um but I spent a long time really lonely in high school because a lot of my friends wouldn't, like, I mean, I would hang out with them in school, and they would make plans without me, things like that. And I stopped trusting people really early in life.
Mm.
um like how people really are when it comes to understanding each other, and what really means to be actually compassionate. I think people don't understand how uh compassion really works. Like you see these videos sometimes online, that will make me just start crying. Like guys saving animals in stupid situations where they're putting their life at risk, or saving humans, or things like that. And
Hmm.
they just make me cry because that's compassion to me. Like you're not thinking about it, you're just doing it. If you have to have someone sit there and explain to you that, like, not inviting your friend, or um like not understanding that, like, okay, like the dark place that they're in, they just need someone to listen, or to talk to, or to like actually think for a few seconds, okay, what place are you actually in, so that I can understand a little bit of where you're coming from.
Right.
People can't do that. I don't think they can.
It's difficult to empathize with other
Yeah.
people, and it's easy to hold a human to a non-human standard, to a
Hmm.
you know what I'm saying? Because I think
Yeah.
we all fuck up. I think we all contradict
Oh yeah.
ourselves. I just think that that's a human thing.
Yeah.
And,
like it's not meant to be judging or anything like that. Like
mm,
I'm not trying to be hard on the other people around me that were like that. It's just when I look back now, it's like, okay, well, I can at least work on myself and not do
well, I mean, what
that.
about fucking with people with
Yeah.
tweets they fucking shot out 10 years ago? Right?
Oh, that.
And using that to derail their shit, man. It's like, well, maybe they're different now, you know?
Yeah, like entirely different now.
That pisses
Um,
me off.
I hope that the kids that I grew up with aren't like that now, and I don't think that they are, because I don't know what's gone on to them since then.
Right.
A lot of those. I'm 38 years old, so 20 years ago is 20 years ago. Like they could have gone to college, they could have gotten married. Who knows? They could have had divorces in between. I know that things cause us to change, and our outlook on how we treat each other is different, and it's a real reflection on the millennials too. Like um because technically I'm one of those ones that align just underneath because I'm 82.
Right.
And it's really weird because I still think of like He-Man as something I actually watched as a kid, even though it was technically a rerun.
Right.
But
It
at the
was
same
new to you.
time, though, like you think of millennial, I think of like emo kids, like the kids who are like, I'm gonna sew stuff into my skin. Like an idiot. Like an idiot.
I'm gonna have
And
ridges
like
on a ridge down my skull, man. It's gonna look cool.
you know, um, I was probably more along the lines of the grunge kids than anything else. Like I wasn't in love with like Nirvana or anything, but like I remember I recognized the music. It was okay.
Yeah.
My brother loved Nirvana. I was like, well, if I have to listen to something, at least they're not the worst.
Very
They're
great.
not Nickelback, okay?
And then there's Nickelback. Every Canadian I hang with mentions them at some point
Well, I
during the
have to.
friendship there.
I am from the province that they're from. So if you come to my
Ah,
province and you listen to any of our rock news stations, we are obligated to play them all the time because it's Canadian and Canadian news and Canadian entertainment. So we advocate for it, and I absolutely do supporting our boys. Like be proud of where they've gone, regardless of whether or not you like their music. But
so
then they play them like every 30
so
minutes.
what the radio stations there? Do they all start with a C? The letter C or what?
No, it's more of that's my city radio. So that's for Calgary, Calgary rock.
Okay.
Um, but it's just they shortened it to CJ. But CJ's probably been the rock station that's been in my city for the longest. It's actually probably been in the city longer than most of the other channels too, because a lot of the pop channels faded real quick. Like, they would last for maybe a year to 5 years at max.
Right.
There was an older station that, well, with them, I wouldn't say they ended so much as like the guys who was running that channel retired finally. So I think he just, he gave it to somebody else to run. But they've always just been. You say CJ92 in Calgary, and everyone knows who you're talking about. And even if you're not from Calgary, if you're from Edmonton, you talk CJ92, they know who you're talking about because even they can listen to that station too.
You're listening to
Um,
CJ92
that's it.
Calgary.
That's exactly it. There's a guy who does that too. He did the gravelly voice and but he absolutely adored Nickelback. It was a two thing. So between supporting Canadian rock artists, because who doesn't want to support Neil Diamond at least for the music part? Maybe not for his politics, but his music's fine. Um, but like he would play them like every like when they first came out, it was like every 15 25 minutes there was a Nickelback song, and they had 3 CDs within the first 2 years. So you're talking over a 5 year period, I think they got up to what, like 8 CDs, one every 20 minutes, and they all sound the same. They really do. It's more forced into your face to notice it when it's played like that. But he would go from one song to the next song to the next song, and you're just like, what song am I on? Because they all sound the same.
Oh man. Yeah.
Noticing on an individual basis, they're not bad. I didn't hate them. It's just overplayed that much, and that's at that point, I'm starting to question how good you are as an artist.
No doubt.
But some of the old guys are the same. Like much as I like AC/DC, they do have their hot number songs do sound a lot alike.
Well, they're basically variations on like 4 or 5 blues riffs, right?
Yeah.
And that's I always thought that's what I classify them as power blues more than
Yeah.
anything. I think it's good shit.
Yeah.
I mean, if you
It
want
was
it,
with them. It was the music and it was also the vocal singer. So I actually like both singers. I liked the original guy better. Something about his voice made him seem more quirky to me. like they're both excellent singers. I could listen to both of them and be entertained. I would go to see him in a concert and be happy. But I miss the original guy because there was something about that. He had a little bit more of a scratch to his voice, and I don't know if it made him sound a bit like a smoker to me, but it just gave him a little bit more of that dirty back schoolboy feel to it. And I mean, the outfits helped with that mentality too, like that image.
Right.
And when he would sing, it just like I would always get that character image in my head. But I like both of them. It's just in terms of how it sounds to my ears, I like the first guy a little better.
That's cool. So, what about relationships?
So this is why this is one of those things where I brought up earlier when we were talking beforehand that I like to occasionally introduce myself to a MGTOW because I'm not the typical girl. I did not date in high school. The closest thing to a date that I ever had was a group date. And I wouldn't count that because no one really specified that we were on dates. It was just a group of us and there was half guys, half girls.
Right.
I didn't really lose my virginity until I was 30. And it's not because I'm religious. I'm not. It was just I wasn't going to... If I was going to lose my virginity for cheap reasons, I wanted to have more control over the situation. Because a lot of the girls around me... There was some who got it into my head that it hurt. The first time just hurts. And it was like, well, if that's not the guy's fault, then I don't want my first time with a guy to hurt and me being like, well, I don't really want to have sex anymore because this hurts.
Right.
I don't think that's it was in my head that wasn't fair to either myself or the dude. And I think a lot of bitches had poor first experiences. Not all of them. I think some of them are just stupid. But I think a lot of them associated that first time with like, well, it hurt and he didn't stop with, well, he couldn't stop right away. It's not that he couldn't stop right away. You know, if it hurt the first time and he thrust a second time, he didn't thrust the second time because he didn't want to stop. He just couldn't help it. And I didn't want that in my head at all. I didn't want that associated with sex even a little bit. And so maybe the feminism thing, like you can kind of see where I can see some girls misunderstanding a lot of things. I'm not saying that's all to do with it. It's not, 100% isn't. But if I look at the girl mentality, I think it's there. Especially if you've ever read what they write. Like, have you ever tortured yourself with a female written fan fiction?
No.
No?
Yeah, no, I've read some horrible fan fiction, but I don't know if it was written by males or females. They always have these fucking stupid names that that kind of like hide. I don't know. Anyway.
So when I was a kid growing up, and I can say that because I was 15 when I started reading this stuff. I was probably a little bit younger than that, but this is internet, so like whatever was available that I could find, I read. So fan fiction for girls at the age of 15 were labeled under lemon. It's a lemon experience. It's a little bit spicy. It's a little bit tart. It's a little bit sweet. It's a lemon. So if you go to a lemonade stand in a fan fiction site, it's pure porn, and it's all written by girls, and it's some of the nastiest, most illogical stuff you will ever read. And a lot of it is essentially non-consenting sex. People getting pregnant who shouldn't because men can't get pregnant. Men pregnancy in fan fiction is rampant everywhere. This is the millennials, folks. And I'm reading this stuff, and even as a kid, I'm just like, that's not logical. That's not logical. This one was good. This one, it's still porn, by the way. Regardless of whether or not it's good porn, it's still porn. And you're realizing some of this is like maybe some of these girls watch some anime that they shouldn't have because it's not like the Japanese didn't have anime that was porn back in the 80s. They
hentai
did.
And shit.
It's just, oh yeah, it was there. It's just it wasn't translated.
Right.
And if it was poorly translated. So you give a girl who's immature, just as immature as a boy. They're just as immature as a boy. They're just as horny as a boy. They're just not honest about it. And you get them to watch something like that, and then you get them to write shit, and it sticks in their head, and all of a sudden they go to have sex for the first time, and it hurts. They're stupid. Women aren't smart people. We're stupid. We're smart and we're stupid all at the same time in one package. And that explains feminism, folks. Yeah, so I never really dated up until recently, and even then it was online dating. Online dating, folks, is not real dating.
Right. So there's nobody in your life right now.
No.
So you are
No.
you are on the market, as they say.
I'm on the market, but at the same time though, I'm not, and I am and I'm not. Like mentally I want a relationship, but like mentally I'm like not prepared for it. I'm like, if I get a job and I could save money for a year maybe.
That's right.
But it's one of those things where with the dude you have to explain, like I understand that there's some dudes who like to stay at home or that kind of thing. I reject it because there are too many women who manipulate that. You
Yeah.
make sure that she's willing to provide for herself first before you introduce that concept to a relationship. Make sure she's paying for herself first, then talk about other stuff. Because I a lot of what's pulled me away from relationships is because the guys that I approached were guys that were burnt badly by women who would do stuff like that.
Mm.
You know, women who didn't understand how to pay their bills.
Like MGTOWs, maybe.
Some of them, I would say borderline becoming MGTOWs.
Okay. Because you said you
Hadn't
were.
fully.
Yeah. Anyway.
I've done one stream with a guy who was MGTOW, and he was trying to point out where I was as a feminist. And it was just like, I'm not a feminist. I can't claim that because I actually think that we're pretty much as equal as we're gonna get, short of like evolution kicking in. That's just all there is to it. There's some things I can't do as a man, and there's some things as a man that you might not be able to do that a woman can do, vice versa, blah, blah, blah. There's no shame in that. That doesn't mean that women shouldn't try, because if you try something, you can see where you're failing. And if you can see where you're failing, then as a human species, maybe we could go to some engineers and figure out, like, a solution. This is why I think that feminism fails, because everywhere that they're pushing for movements is for cushy jobs, not for comfortable jobs. I would be happy to do some of the more difficult jobs that men do if I knew it was something I could do reliably and safely, because safety isn't just about myself, it's about the people around me. So if I'm at a work site, which women can do, they can't do everything that the men are doing, but they can certainly do it. If I'm not physically capable of doing something, then I can maybe work it out with an engineer somewhere down the line and point out this and this and this here is where we fail. Can we maybe see if there's some kind of technology that we can work on? That's how I'd like to see companies work.
Mm-hmm.
If they really wanted to work on equality, because that wouldn't just help out women, that would actually help out men.
Well, about the bottom line. I mean, what they've been passing, quotas and shit, that's not always helpful to the bottom line, especially if you fill it with an unqualified person. Just they qualify merely because of what's between their legs or what color their skin is, right?
And that's how I see it too. Like if the problem was just that the jobs weren't available to both sexes, that would be different. They are. It's just the choice has to be made if you want to do that job. And if the choice is that you want to do that job but you can't, then you have to work out how are you going to fix that problem. Then you fix that problem. And you do it in a way that's supposed to help everybody. Like, that's how humans work. If you're going to build a bridge, you have to figure out how to build the bridge. You got to start with, maybe the base of it or something. I don't know. I don't build bridges, but I've seen feminists build bridges and they've collapsed. So maybe they should have asked some men for some pointers. I'm not saying that they couldn't build it, but it's this thing where... Yeah.
This whole math is like whatever you think it is. You
Yep.
know, math is inherently a white thing. I'm like, what in the fuck what is that? You know, it's like, okay, we're math. You know, math, and I guarantee you, man, you learn math. You know, you need to be able to count and subtract. I mean, how are you going to know if you're getting ripped off or not, right? I don't know, man. That when I heard that the other day, I'm like, well, what in the name of God is going on here? I mean, really. What about tattoos? How about you? Got any tats? You tatted up?
I am not tatted up. It's one of those things where I want to lose weight first before I get tattoos.
Mm.
And two, I also wanted to wait until I was a little bit older before I got tattoos because, you know, if you're in your 20s and you get a tattoo, and this is not just my mom saying this or my dad saying this is older men with tattoos who got them at 20 and then like all of a sudden they're 70 and they don't look so good.
Right.
It was just, if I'm going to get a tattoo, I want it to be something that actually means something because it's a permanent mark. Getting them removed is really painful and kind of gross. I've looked into like there's
Right.
the laser removal and then the skin graft, and I'm like, both of those look gross to me. So if
Shit.
so
Yeah.
once it goes on, I'm not taking that shit off. So it's gotta mean something. You know, someday, you know, maybe down the line I'll have something that inspires me to do that. But it's the same with holes. Like I had earrings when I was 6. I technically probably have one hole left that hasn't grown back in because I just hated having things dangling around my neck. It would get stuck on like hair, or if I'd put on certain coats, sometimes, you know, the earring would get stuck in like a collar or something, and you're all of a sudden you're yanking on a body part and you're worried that it's going to rip through it, and I did not like that one bit. So no earrings for me, no nose piercings. I might get earrings again one, you know, maybe down the line, just like get stubs.
Right.
Because it's not the worst thing to deface. And earrings can look nice to highlight your face, but I've never liked things around my neck. Um, Maybe in a past life I was like strangled or something. You know, maybe I was hung as a child. In a past life I was a bootlegger and I got caught. I don't know. All I know is anytime it's even in winter, like I'll wear a scarf, but it has to be as loose as possible because like nope.
Do you have any scars?
On my knees. I was pushed in the parking lot at a school, and so I have this nice big chunk out of my knee.
Eee.
Um, oh yeah, it hurt too, and it was one of those things where like between school and daycare, I was supposed to be going to a pool after that, and I hated that girl so much. It's not that she pushed me; it was she stopped me from going swimming.
No shit.
So man, she was on my hit list. I mean, I didn't do anything, but man, I did not talk to her ever again. That was for sure. I was like, bitch, you took away my swimming. I don't care if you don't like me. You can talk shit about me all you want, but if you stop me from having fun on my own,
Uh,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say. Let's see. Wow, we're getting towards the end of the line here. Anime. What's your favorite anime?
Ooh. Okay. So honestly, I haven't watched anything too much recently. Like the last thing I watched was Goblin Slayer,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm a little bit disappointed with where that one's going.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Actually, ever since the first episode, I've been disappointed afterwards. Like, there's some episodes that I definitely liked, but it's like for every season, there's 3 episodes that are important, and then the rest is all filler, or they've made it come across as filler. But I absolutely adored that first episode. It felt like watching a real D&D game in real life. Um, I realize that there's people who didn't like the rape scene, and I can understand if the ratings weren't right for it. You know, like if they said it was PG-13 or good for teens or something, I wouldn't agree with that because there is a rape scene. Um, but I don't see anything wrong with that being in there because most fantasy, when you really think about it, is already dark. All fantasy has always been rather dark. Most creatures in fantasy are very dark. Um, and I kind of loved the concept of seeing it that up close and personal because, like, the last time you saw something like that with that kind of mentality was like Lords of the Rings. And even then, they didn't go into that because they could have. They absolutely could have because it's implied in a lot of the stories that that's the kind of villains they were fighting against. Um, so I'd like that about that anime that they did have that. I would say Berserk is better because of it.
Oh yeah.
You know, because they
I like
cover it
Berserk.
a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I want to watch necessarily rape scenes, but if it's a good story, like it fits in really well and it shows like the setting and what's going on, what your opponents actually are, it gives you a really good mood setting.
Well, it's a good
And I
device for vengeance. I mean, or
real vengeance.
yeah,
Like
exactly.
you feel for the main character in Goblin Slayer because like of what he saw happen to his sister. Like his sister sacrificed herself for him in the worst way. Um, and it's absolutely understandable that he went crazy.
So
You know,
is he your favorite character out of all anime, or?
out of all anime, no. Just currently now, yes. I have this belief that there's always going to be another anime out there that I haven't seen yet that I'm going to like more.
Right.
So I don't have any favorites at the moment. Like I grew up with Dragon Ball Z, and that one growing up was my favorite out of the bunch. Like I watched Sailor Moon, I watched Gundam Wing, I watched. I did Digimon over Pokemon. I liked Digimon better than Pokemon because the jokes were funnier.
Did you do Death Note?
Well, Digimon was a little bit more inappropriate. They had a lot of little hidden jokes. It was kind of like you know how Animaniacs had the odd inappropriate joke that was supposed to be hidden but wasn't.
Yeah.
They did a lot more of that than Pokemon ever did. And as a teen watching anime, you kind of appreciate that a little bit. Plus, Pokemon really was younger. It was geared a lot for younger kids, even though they could have covered more ranges. Um, but I liked Gundam Wing. It was probably the first Gundam that I liked because the characters were better. I liked the concept of the other Gundam stories better, though. Um, so, I mean, I'm hoping one day that there'll be another one that comes out that's. There probably already is. I haven't really been in the anime world for a while. Like, you know, if you were to bring up Vic as like a topic, I don't know about you, but Funimation has never been a good company.
Yeah. See, I don't have a dog in that hunt, but I know that it's a thing. You know what I'm
So
saying?
I get what you're saying. I'll just say from my own experiences as a 15-year-old growing up, Funimation had their paws into most of the anime. There's never been a point where they weren't changing things up to make them either more appropriate for the American audience, which is what they were doing, um, and just changing things like that. There's never been a point where the main voice actors that you're hearing coming up, who you know, except for Vic. Vic is actually pretty new. Back in the day, they all had their names come up every once in a while with issues to do with the anime and the censoring and because like the whole thing with Dragon Ball Z when it started out, there was never any scenes where like you know an arm was cut off and they were bleeding, and the kids would be like, okay, listen, don't treat us like we're stupid. I understand that you don't want us to be violent, but like if you cut off somebody's arm, they're gonna spew blood everywhere. At
Exactly.
13, they're not stupid. They
Yeah.
don't like that, you know. So there was stuff with that, and then um, here's the thing: Sailor Moon was never appropriate for the age group they were trying to make it for, ever, ever. Anyone who's ever read the manga will tell you that whole storyline was never appropriate for children because it's based off of aliens from 1,000 years ago. You know, so like Serena is like 13 years old with the intentions of getting married to Darian, who's 18 in college. You're going to present this show to children in America. That story was completely butchered.
Right.
I mean, the anime was already toned down anyway because you know it's still supposed to be appropriate for
Well,
children.
yeah, most of them are called. They're. I think the word is shonen,
Yeah.
which means later teenage boy in Japanese, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know exactly what you're saying.
It's also Japan has a different mentality. It actually makes a lot more sense when I look back on it now because like when you know that you know that they could be 13 and get married in Japan, right?
Yeah, and there's a lot of like socially different stuff, right? And if you
Yeah.
understand that the culture, you know, the
Yeah.
yeah,
That doesn't mean that they do that. Like that doesn't mean that they get married and then they go and have sex at 13 either. It means that they can get married. So like the mentality when you're talking about that is still different. Like when you look into what it is that they talk about, like the fiancés might go to school together. You know, they might grow up together. You know, it's one of those things that like in their culture they believe that that makes for a closer relationship because quite often in Asian countries, you know, sometimes family members take care of family members. Like I know China and Japan are different, but like the male family in China takes on the parents. So it's a little bit different in Japan, but it's not really that much different. Like there's still a point where you take care of your parents when they retire because the idea is your parents took care of you, so now that they're retired, you should take care of them. Um, and we're not really like we're not really that different here. It's just we go about it a lot different than we used to. You know, a lot of people used to care for their parents at home in the same way that they do in Asia. It's just we do more homes here than we do at home care.
right,
Uh, and for various reasons. Like sometimes it's better for our grandparents if they're medically ill or not, you know, able to care for themselves. It's better for them to be in a home. But mentally, it's better for grandparents to actually be around family. 100% better.
I totally
So
agree with that.
I can't disagree with how they go about it, but you present that in a cartoon to a completely different country with a different way of thinking, it sounds perverted. Absolutely, it sounds perverted. Um, that's why I'm explaining that one, just for the record. Like this is like how much manga I've read over the years, or how many videos I've watched where they talk about about things like that. It's not really like the Middle East where you know when a 13-year-old girl is getting married, she's done, man. She better hope that she's ready because they're not gonna care about her. You know.
Yeah, I don't know the lolly stuff. Creeps me out.
It scares me. It creeps me out too.
Yeah,
They take it too far. Like it's
you
one of
know.
those things where they want to portray Asian women as always being youthful looking, and it's not necessarily mentally healthy for them. You know, a lot
Right.
of Asian girls do look naturally young. They do age well for the most part. They do. There are tons. I know tons of Asian girls that are just beautiful. Um,
I just feel.
but
Yeah, I feel like it's pushing a creepy agenda. You know.
it does.
So
It does.
that's just And hey, look, live and let live. Like I said, that's my true libertarian belief. You know, it's like do you do you, and I'm not talking to you specifically, Jen.
No, no, I try not to philosophize that because,
Yeah.
like, even when I think about it, I can't help because we all know Japan is repressed. Okay, we all know that they just need to go out and just bang a lot because they are sexually the most repressed country that I can think of on the planet right now, and
Just a
it's a
little
reflection
uptight.
of. It really is a reflection of your porn. Like when anything and everything kind of gets you a little bit off, but you're not going to go out and get a girlfriend and maybe have some sex or something. Like I understand you don't want to get her pregnant. You know, don't get her pregnant, man. If you're worried about that, don't do it. But yeah, I've noticed that with people who don't take care of themselves with that function in mind.
Right.
Um, it's where I'm seeing our country is going right now. I'm not just poking at feminists, I'm SJWs and like the extremists on it. I'm not saying everyone should run around and have like boinking sessions, but like don't be afraid of having it too, or like doing your own thing for yourself, because if you're gonna end up like thinking about tentacles, there's something wrong.
Well, and there's like this weird kind of divide.
Yeah.
There's this like this very libertine like people out there, and then there's
Yeah.
the exact opposite, man. And it's not religious, based. It's all ideologically driven. It's weird shit.
They kidnapped the liberal party. Like that's the thing. Like it's
It's
not
a
liberals.
church.
I know. It's a church. It absolutely is. And and the weird thing is they're split between being the most perverted people on the planet and being like they I don't think they can handle as a nun. I don't think they understand the concept of a nun. I really don't. What they want everyone else to be like a nun, but like
Right.
The conversations with them comes back to the genitalia so much that's why I have to say, just go out and have sex, man. Just do it.
Yeah.
I can't remember who said it yesterday, if it was Mr. Adam or if it was No, it was Caligula on my stream who said, go out and just hire yourself a hooker
The
for
Emperor
Christmas.
Caligula. Yes, we don't advocate or plan felonies on this station. Just saying, we're talking about Minecraft, y'all. All right, so just sit it out there.
You go right ahead and you enjoy your porn, straight Sith male. There's no shame in it. I mean, like
Porn is fine, man. It's good stuff.
just don't let it rule your life. Like don't
Right.
let it get to the point where it rules your life. But other than that, you know what? Do what you need to do, because like if the alternative is going
Just don't
crazy
expect your
and hating
girlfriend to
everybody-
want you to spooge in her face, man. Okay. I had to throw that out there. That came out a little crude, but I mean, that's how they all end, man. It's like, what the fuck? I don't know. I grew up in the age of Playboy and stuff, right? So I grew up looking
Yeah,
at real women.
I still remember that age. Like porn might have started for a lot of boys at 15 when I was 15, but it's not like there's 2 or 3 years before that where the internet didn't really do that.
Right, and we rely on Hugh Hefner for our, I don't know.
Not to
our
mention
faps.
search bars were a completely different thing back in the day.
No
So I
doubt.
mean, I remember once stumbling upon something during a search for school that I wasn't supposed to find, and you're supposed to be looking up Caligula for school, and you find all this porn, and your dad's like, "Why is there so much porn?" And you're like, "I was looking up Caligula, Dad. The guy was interested in his sister. What can I say?"
One of it is the fact that Bob Guccione took over the production of the movie because it went way over budget, and he stuck all this porn in there where they had pretty much shot the whole movie, right? But he said, I guess he figured since he was back in, he was the producer, he's the guy that published Penthouse magazine, right?
Okay.
Yeah, and that's why the Malcolm McDowell version of the movie Caligula goes off on this weird sexual tangents. It's like they don't fucking fit with the movie, man. That's why. So you now know the rest of the story.
But the thing is, though, if you actually look into the real Caligula, he wasn't that much better.
He's like that dude. He was fucking crazy, man. And
But
very
they all were.
yeah.
They all were. Like, they were all in that high sexual mindset. So, like...
It's kind of like the kids today, man. Or half of them.
I don't like to go into conspiracy theories and things like that, but I half wonder with Disney sometimes. Like the penis in the background on The Little Mermaid, I thought that was a joke. It was there. Like, that part I didn't think was a joke. I just thought the person painting it in there did it as a joke. And I still think that to this day, but, sometimes you look back on some of those videos and you're just like, how many times were you spelling words in the background? Because a lot of kids, that's all they think about. I have to
Absolutely.
have a relationship. I have to have a relationship, and I can't even just have a friendship. I have to have a relationship, and that's just gross.
Right.
Like friendships are really important too, and it doesn't. I understand it's awkward when it's a man and a woman, but like it does happen. Sometimes it can be friendships too.
Hmm.
As long as she's just not doing favors all the time. Like if you're doing the favors all the time, she's using you, and you need to drop that bitch. But if she's doing favors for you too, in the same way that you would a friend, then you've got a friendship. Just to clarify, I've been asked that one before. How do you know there's a real friendship? If she's doing stuff back for you and she's not asking, you're not asking her to do it, then she's probably your friend.
Yeah.
Ugh.
That's interesting, isn't it? What about your the YouTube community? Who would you say is a criminally undersubbed YouTuber?
I don't know. I would say, you know what? If I have to look at anybody, I'd have to say Scribe. Surprisingly,
Mm.
you know, I mean, I would say you too.
You
I
know,
mean,
no,
like you
but
do
he
a pretty
comes
good
up a
stream,
lot. No, and I totally agree with it. He's extremely talented. He's got a great package. Branding is on point.
and he's super nice. He's
Yeah,
a super nice guy. Like he's approachable, nice guy. Like I was surprised when he let me on his stream because like to him I'm he knows me maybe through Satsu and Monkey because I did game streams with Satsu and Monkey, but um I really appreciated that he brought me on because like I needed to rationalize what was going on up here because that march of China, and I keep bringing up China, but like honestly, the whole thing with Trudeau right now and picking up tips on how our police go about their business and the way they want to take guns, and I understand like the cities wanting to get a handle on handguns and things like that, but that's not what he's talking about. And the way he's setting up the police force, I don't like that kind of stuff. I
scary.
like the police force to be able to defend themselves if they need to, because anyone putting their life on the line for me should have the right to defend themselves if they feel their life is on the line. But I don't like the idea of giving them too much power because anybody can abuse power. Any idiot can abuse power. Um, and I don't like what I see in Hong Kong. And our parliament has done it before. I'm not saying they're stupid enough to do it again, but they've done it before where they've followed in the tracks of other people, especially when it comes to Europe. And it's a colony thing. And I know Functional maybe doesn't agree with me to this extent, but like I feel like a lot of our parliament has done that.
Mm.
And sometimes it's okay to do that. Like if they're doing good things, there's nothing wrong with copying a good idea. But I don't like the ideas that Trudeau likes at all. So when Scribe let me on, it was just me going, hey, you might have a lot of Canadians fleeing the border if he keeps doing stuff like that. So just to warn you, at
Right.
least these Mexicans speak English.
That's funny. So, all right, what about YouTubers that are overhyped? Who's
YouTubers that I've ever hyped.
no overhyped? Somebody that
Overhyped?
yeah, that you don't get it right. It's just why is this person even got 1 million subs?
Uh right now I would poke fingers at two people. And I don't hate them. Like I know why they're big YouTubers, but I don't hate them personally. But Philip DeFranco is one that I question why he's still big.
Mm.
Because he hasn't changed at all. Like even when I go back to watch the odd video from him to see if like maybe he's noticed, like he still has so many people who are still favorite to him, and it's just he is so biased. And he's still trying to portray himself as some kind of center when he's very much not.
Right.
I wouldn't hate him so much if he was honest about it. If he was just more like, listen, guys, I am more left leaning. You know, maybe it's because my life is my life left leaning and I've been influenced by it. I don't care why he is. I just know that he is. But he's very clear in his articles that he's wishy-washy and he's very biased towards certain things. And I don't see why he's still huge the way he is. But I mean, he has worked for a really long time. Like, I would still see him having 1 million subs. I would still see him having a few million subs. It's like Anision, you know, like Anision is overhyped, but he's been dying for years. You know, even without all this stuff happening, I suspect he would have died out anyway, all on his own, because he's a piece of shit. He's a disgusting piece of shit, and it took this long for people to kind of catch on. But he was also getting really boring, because a lot of what he does, you know, a lot of what he was doing, I think he hyped up on his own too, regardless of whether or not he was attacking kids in the overall. A lot of it he was doing more of because it was getting him views, and that's how he was getting. We know that's how he's getting off. You know, it's not just that he's maybe a bit of a pervert when it comes to younger women, but it's also that he gets off on attention.
And power.
Right? And power.
I think having control over another person, that kind of power, right?
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
So with him losing on YouTube, like, you know, people were starting to catch on to that, and Repsion helped with it. I do believe he did, because, you know, he was just like, stop paying attention to him, stop giving him views. But Repsion can't, you know, hold to his own word.
I know.
Like,
man,
I don't blame him.
I swear
like,
to God, man, it's hard to get, you know, because drama just is like, it's like the Tar Baby and the Uncle Remus story, right? Where you touch it with one part of your hand and then it's stuck, and then but you can't get rid of it. It's weird. It's just weird shit, you know. It's So
I understand why he goes back, and I mean,
and then there's Chris Hansen. Why in the fuck is this dude on YouTube? You know.
I like it and I don't. I like it and I don't, because like there's such a background difference between him and like Repsion as an example. So like when he does his videos, he's doing it from home. Hansen is doing it from home. Mm-hmm. And you look at his home and you're just like, this dude has made his millions on TV. And he would be blessed if he had even half the amount of views that, say, Repsion's had over his career on YouTube, for what it is. And you look at Repsion's home, and he has a real job. Like, I believe he's an industry boy now, and he still does his videos because he still loves the drama on YouTube. I believe he still loves his YouTube channel, and I do believe he loves making his streams and his videos. But he's not making any money off of YouTube, and he's worked his butt off to do something like what Hansen has. And it's a joke in that sense. But at the same time, though, Hansen can bring in the type of views that Repsion once focused on.
But my question is that why is Chris Hansen on fucking YouTube? Right?
Brings in views.
Well, not just that. I mean, it's just like, why isn't he back, like, on? I mean, he was a stand-up, you know, CBS or NBC guy for years. It seems like he could find a home somewhere on cable.
I wouldn't be at all surprised if it isn't just that he's just not leaning enough to a certain side, because, you know, he's got his history on TV. Like, you know, it's not like the show that he's doing on YouTube is any different from the one he was doing on TV.
Right. Have a seat.
But I'm wondering if it's not that he's just more conservative leaning.
Maybe.
Because I
know
didn't
even think about that, man.
You know, because Hollywood, like, I wouldn't want to be in Hollywood and be conservative. Like, I mean, the conservatives are starting to build their own stuff. Like, it's gotten to the point where you can visually see that they're starting to build their own stuff because they're sick of it. And Hollywood is going to lose out because they're going to lose half of their views.
Yeah.
They already have.
Yeah.
You look at TV, you look at It was actually funny. I pointed out on stream yesterday that my mom has been watching Christmas movies for the last 4 years and keeping notes in a journal on what the movies were, what they were called, who the actors were, how often they're recycling actors, the storylines, how often they change, what this one was about, how often they played this movie to this year, to this year, to this year. And cable is in a rut. It absolutely is in a rut. It's the same with the TV shows. Like you can watch eight TV shows on cable, and it's the same actors. The shows are, you might go from like, oh, they're working in a firehouse, or they're working in a hospital, or this one's a lawyer, or this one's the policeman, but they're all the same actors, and it's all the same storylines. It's all the same drama, and they push a lot of their SJW views in it. Yeah, they'll push a lot of liberal views in it. It's the same. It's the same kind of garbage. Um,
Mm.
and honestly, I would watch that, and even as a liberal, I would be bored to tears. It's it's like a Smallville. Cable is a Smallville when you sit down and watch it. I'm glad I sat down with my mom and watched what she was doing and read through her little journal, because it was a little bit weird.
Yeah.
Um, and she had noticed it. I mean, she still watches it because she likes her Christmas movies, but even she noticed it, and I was like, you don't think that that's weird? That's suspicious. That's like she used to complain about. Oh, they use mind control with the advertisements, because when you're watching a TV show and all of a sudden the volume boots up to twice as loud when the
Yeah.
commercials come on, and I'm like, but how can you not see that with everything else that you're watching?
Mm-hmm.
That like they're so I can understand why Chris Hansen's on YouTube, because he's gonna get more conservatives watching him on YouTube.
I didn't even think about that. That sounds like the right answer to me. Before we part, what about you, content wise? What are you working on, and what have we got to look forward to you doing in the next in 2020?
Oh, so I am I'm working on my computer a little bit. So I've got a couple of games that I've bought. I'm looking towards hopefully getting one after Christmas as well. So I'm gonna do a couple of builder series for my gaming stream. I'm trying to keep an open eye on anything multiplayer too, just because Functional and I want to maybe do a game together for a stream. Um, I'm supposed to be doing Raft with Random at some point. It's just I keep putting it off because, despite the fact that there's been like massive updates, I haven't seen a single thing happen yet. So I'm rather mad at my game. But other than that, we do our this week aside, because it's Christmas. There's probably not going to be a lot going on for me this week. We still do a Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday with Functional and I on our Canadian talks, and those are random. We'd like to bring in random guests, so anybody who's interested, just let me know. You can DM me on either Discord or Twitter, but your chances are better on Discord, because Twitter last week, honest to God, I didn't know when people were messaging me because it didn't show anything, no indicator. I would just go in and was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, well that was a couple hours ago. But my notification's fine. But Discord, I'm always technically on Discord. I always have it on. If I haven't messaged you on Discord at that point, I was probably asleep. But I just leave it on in case somebody needs to message me.
Cool.
I just don't necessarily put myself on I'm here mode. I go invisible. I like to be ninja.
Well, cool. Well, so show your channel, and
Yep.
I'll put the link in later as soon as we get out of here, because I forgot to get that. I did put your Twitter though on there, so her Twitter is there. Y'all click it, follow her. Jen's awesome, obviously. So shill it, girl.
There we go. There's my YouTube channel, and this is me. just in case that doesn't work. But yeah, I do have a different avatar on the YouTube. I keep changing it. Like I go from Mike from Canmore to this really judgy looking monkey face that I like to tease ranting with because I actually think it would have been perfect for him as like a side monkey for when he's really judging people. And then there's this adorable puppy that is now an adult dog. He has been for 8 years, but I like to look at that picture because he's so cute.
Well, shucks. How about if I add moderator? That's right. You're now a moderator on this channel because one of the things you have to do to become a moderator here is to actually be a guest on Ice Cream. That's one of the ways you can qualify.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, it's like so. Yeah, we're kind of at the. I'm out of good questions, man. You've been a fantastic guest, and any final words before we split? You want to ask if there's any questions? Do a little quick AMA. We got 5 minutes. Anybody got a question for Miss Jen?
Well, I was laughing at what Eric said because Chris Hansen is on YouTube for cheating on his wife and writing back. See, this stuff I wouldn't know about him. Like that stuff, I'm not saying
that's kind of
he's an
where I
angel.
was going with that. To be honest, I was like, "What? He must have fucked up, man."
Well, there you go. Well, that right there writes you out of Hollywood there.
He O'Reilly'd himself out of it. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's not responsible for his own fuck ups because certainly he's an adult and he could do that.
Yeah, man. But at least he's, I guess, going back to the grind, and at least if not, he's paying his alimony check, his child support and shit. So
it's not bad for him to do what he's doing though. Like I mean, I know it's unfair to look at, like I said, to look into his home and see like he's built his own wealth on his own. But at the same time, though, it's going to bring attention to the platform because, yet again, he's proving that conservatives don't really have a view on TV. They don't have it on the cable.
Right.
They don't have a place where we can discuss things like this and have our own take on it and do it respectfully and calmly and not have people screaming names at us for having a different point of view. I actually think he can do that. Whether or not he's going to do it very well, I don't know. But he seems to be doing well with tackling Onision, which anything that takes down a pervert, a legit pervert, is okay in my books.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Well, but there you go. I mean, it's he is definitely doing a service right now, man. Addressing that stuff because. God knows a ton of people have tried to in the past with no avail.
It's broken open a lot of stuff. Like I think the last one I watched was the interview with one of Onision's moderators, and like the whole community was full of stuff.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that they're bringing it to light because I knew that he was shady. Right. I knew he was shady. I just. And you really got to think shady people do follow other shady people. So I have no problems cracking that open. And no, I don't have sympathy for his girlfriend because there comes a point where you know what you're doing. Like
I understand what you. Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. There's a point where you're aware of being complicit in stuff that's wrong, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like maybe she shouldn't be punished as harshly as he if she was under threat, duration, like that. Like I will take that into account, but she is still a predator. She still did what she did, so she still needs to be punished for it. Yes.
Well, Eric wants to know this: would you kick a puppy for world hunger? To end world hunger? Okay.
Because it wouldn't end world hunger.
There you go. I like your answer. That's pretty good. But we're at that point where I guess it's time to say goodbye to the good people. It was fun. I had some fun.
I have to make a parting remark now because I'm
Please do.
channeling Cryptic because of that one. But if I kicked a puppy, some Chinaman named Cryptic would just think I'm tenderizing it for him for later.
It's awesome. All right, and on that note, I'm going to say Merry Christmas to everybody. Friday night we'll be back doing the Cream Stream thing, and then this time next week we'll be talking to Pincalo, the driving ape man, also known as Mr. Blind Press. So he's really going to love me saying that. Pincalo's a great guy, but and then the week after that is P Dog Night. So I'm kind of getting in this neighborhood over here, and you were my first. So
that sounds fun.
I feel so special. But on that note, let's say goodbye and get out of here. Okay, you ready?
Yep.
All right, say bye.
Have a good night, guys.
Merry Christmas.
And ladies. If there's any ladies.
Every week on Friday, midnight Eastern, the Creem Stream, the weekly world news for YouTube. Sundays, 5 p.m. Eastern, the ice cream interviews, fascinating people, fascinating people. Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern, hot takes with the Butter Baron, watching horrible shit so you don't have to. Subscribe to IRATE PROSTATE now.